This is the book of Joel, chapter 3, verse 9, and it reads, it says, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war. Wake up the mighty man, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong."
This is Iran's Heydar-Shaikan ballistic missile, and the regime has been firing it at U.S. bases across the Middle East. Iran has been using the missile throughout its war with the United States. But U.S. officials say Iran's attacks are growing more and more complex, and that's making the missile even more dangerous for American troops. The Heydar-Shaikan is a medium-range ballistic missile. Iran claims it can fly 900 miles, meaning it can threaten the entire Middle East and beyond. Iran considers the missile to be all-Iranian, meaning it was designed in Iran and it's not a modified version of an older Soviet missile. It's named after the Battle of Heydar in the 7th century when followers of the Prophet Muhammad conquered a Jewish enclave. There are a few features that make this missile challenging for Iran's adversaries. In some variants, the nose section, which carries the warhead, can maneuver as it crashes toward the Earth at high speeds. The missile also has solid fuel, unlike older missiles, meaning it doesn't need to be fueled up right before launch. That allows Iran to keep the missiles loaded on trucks and ready to fire quickly before U.S. warplanes can take them out. Experts also say the missile can carry a payload of more than 1,000 pounds and travel thousands of miles an hour, making direct hits incredibly dangerous.
موشکی خیبرشکن برای اولین بار در مقابل دیدگان شما نوع موشک بالستیک با سوخت جامد.
When the Heydar-Shaikan was introduced in 2022, Iran's military claimed its third-generation design made the missile one-third the weight of previous models and took about 1/6 the time to launch. Iran has been using the Heydar-Shaikan alongside other missiles and drones, and it has been using a range of speeds, flight paths, and maneuvers to try to confuse defenses. The U.S. has shot down the majority of those projectiles, but some have gotten through. In July, 3 American soldiers were killed in an attack on a base in Jordan. Before the war started, the U.S. and Israel estimated that Iran had about 2,500 medium-range ballistic missiles, including the Heydar-Shaikan. Iran also has short-range ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and space launch vehicles. It has also fired intermediate-range ballistic missiles at the U.S. military base in the Indian Ocean, known as Diego Garcia. During Epic Fury, the U.S. tried to knock out Iran's missile and launch sites, but officials say Iran has been able to dig them out of underground facilities and reconstitute some of its supply. There's also evidence that Iran has shared the Heydar-Shaikan with the Houthi rebels in Yemen. The Defense Intelligence Agency has published photos showing that the Houthis' version is nearly identical to Iran's. Iran hasn't disclosed the cost of the Heydar-Shaikan, but analysts say it is far cheaper than the US and Israeli interceptors that are used to shoot them down. Those interceptors, like Patriots, THAADs, and Standard missiles, cost between $2 million and $15 million each, depending on the type. At the beginning of the war, President Trump and other US officials said that a key objective of Epic Fury was to wipe out Iran's missile program.
We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground.
But President Trump has backed off of that objective and is now largely focused on getting Iran to drop its pursuit of a nuclear weapon.
Missiles aren't the problem. Missiles are, they hurt a little location, but they don't blow up the planet.
Entering its 5th month, the conflict between Iran and the United States has continued to flare up, with both sides launching attacks on strategic targets. And there's no sign yet that the two countries are ready to sign a deal.
All right, Shalom. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth. Shalom to the hopeful elect. This is the foreshadowing of America's defeat. Okay, and I want to get into that here. Before we play this video here on the right, all right, this article here on the left is from Collapse News. And the headline reads, it says, Iran isn't just hitting U.S. air bases. It's proving the American military is defeated. All right. Again, this is the foreshadowing of America, Babylon's defeat. Okay. Let's just briefly summarize this and we'll get into it here. Right. Let's see what we get real quick. No turning back. All right. Like we talked about the other day, it all goes downhill from here. All right. So summary of the selection, core assertion. It says the select text claims that Iran's actions serve as a direct evidence that the United States military has been defeated. All right. Let's see if we can get some more. All right. I know there's a little bit more there, so let's just see if we can get out the read. All right. The United States has already lost the war. Okay. It says, I have warned for years that the American empire is living on borrowed time. It's the spirit, right? Time is being cut short. Okay. Iran is now cashing that check. This is not a limited skirmish over shipping lanes or a manageable round of tit for tat. Iran is precision targeting U.S. aircraft, radars, and base infrastructure across the region. All right, with the help with China and Russia as well. And it says it is doing so in a way that exposes the Pentagon as a paper tiger. All right. Let's see what else we got. It says blind parked are perfect targets. It says Iran's opening salvos were not random. They were deliberately designed to blind, deplete, and overwhelm. Tehran has targeted and destroyed U.S. radar and air defense systems, and once those systems go dark, every aircraft parked on a tarmac becomes a target waiting for impact. Satellite imagery analysis reported by the Washington Post and Middle East Eye found that at least 228 structures or pieces of equipment at U.S. military sites across the Middle East have been damaged or destroyed since February, man. So they've been getting their ass kicked since February. Okay? Pretty much since the beginning of the year, since this war started. This is not a propaganda win for America. It is evidence of defeat. See? Iran has also demonstrated an industrial capacity the United States cannot match. Estimates suggest Iran can produce more than 100 ballistic missiles a month, while U.S. interceptor manufacturing is reportedly stuck at around 6 to 7 units per month. Those numbers mean the defense will eventually fail. See? I have seen claims, which I cannot verify, of course, due to the fog of war, that 6 F-35s have been destroyed or damaged in recent missile strikes from Iran. What I can verify is that the Pentagon would never admit if it were true. This is the same military that assured us its air defenses could hold, and those defenses collapsed while Iran's missiles broke through. All right, they can't stop the force of Iran. Okay, why there is no military solution. All right, and we'll read this and grab the scriptures here. Okay, but we'll just breeze through these two parts. So it says, here's the strategic dead end. Here is the strategic dead end that Washington refuses to admit. You cannot mass aircraft for a strike in the Middle East without making them targets. Iran can fire waves of ballistic missiles and drones at runways faster than the United States can replace its interceptors. The more jets you have on a runway, the more you are feeding Iran's targeting database. Iran is controlling the OODA loop. It is initiating while America is reacting. A reactive military is a losing military, right? So as we just read in that Joel, okay, let the weak say I am strong. All right. Again, they have the better technology, the better missiles. All right. They're being supported by China and Russia. Okay. And there's no way that America can defend that. Okay. It says a little bit more here. It says Iran may also believe that limited war suits it better than peace because it can keep pressure on Washington while avoiding all-out conflict. There is even open reporting that Iran is considering a ground incursion into Kuwait to seize U.S. bases there. If that is the threat, what do you think a U.S. ground invasion of Iran would look like? It would be military suicide, right? And those troops are not prepared to, to have, battle on the ground out there in Iran, The way they have it set up out there is no way for them to gain the advantage, all right? It's a lose-lose situation, okay? It says what this defeat means for America. All right, we'll read this last part. It says Trump's war has exposed a broken institution after years of Pentagon press releases about unmatched American dominance. The world now sees a superpower that cannot protect its own Slovakia. It says it sees a superpower that cannot protect its own bases, cannot keep its radar screens lit, and cannot replenish its interceptor stockpiles. Russia and China are not going to be intimidated by a military that is visibly exhausted, right? The war has also made the global economy's center of gravity unmistakable. Eastern countries, including China, Russia, and Iran, are already pushing a diversified, less dollar-dependent financial system. Iran's ability to control vital energy choke points only accelerates that shift. Okay, what does that mean for ordinary Americans? It means that the printed dollar will ultimately buy less, and the era of living on debt and global tribute is ending. The dollar's value is collapsing because it lacks real backing. Americans are going to have to produce real things, grow real food, and store wealth in order to overcome the currency erosion that will accelerate. All right, we all know that this war is leading to the collapse of this economy. All right, they're gonna usher in the chip. That's what it's all about, and this war is doing just that. Okay, real quick, Jeremiah, and I want to read this in the NLT as well. It's Jeremiah 50:22 in the NLT says, "Let the battle cry be heard in the land, a shout of great destruction." Again, this is the foreshadowing of America's defeat. All right, and I was actually looking that up real quick, and I just, had it, give me a meaning through the AI here. And it says, understanding foreshadowing of America's defeat definition. Foreshadowing of America's defeat refers to early signs or warnings in historical contexts that indicate potential failures in U.S. military efforts, all right, which we're seeing right now. The concept is particularly relevant in analyzing conflicts such as the Vietnam War, where strategic missteps and leadership failures became apparent before the eventual defeat. And it's the same thing here. All right, you got generals that are under Trump telling Trump to stop bombing Iran. Okay, the people around him are giving him horrible advice. Okay, nothing is going in their favor, man. Nothing's working. All right, all the peace negotiations have been thrown out. Okay, there's no diplomacy. All right, so everything is headed to total disasters, as we've been saying week to week. Key elements of foreshadowing: hints of strategic missteps, early decisions made by military and political leaders that did not align with effective strategies, right? Leadership failures, ineffective leadership can lead to poor decision making, right? And everybody is questioning the decisions that are being made, okay, within the White House about this Iran war. All right? And it's causing division, amongst the people and within the within the presidency and the people that's around Trump, It says, which may lead to impending defeat, cultural and social context. The societal unrest and division within the U.S. during wartime can also serve as indicators of future challenges, right? So there you go. Let's go back and read this again. Okay, Jeremiah 50:22 NLT. Let the battle cry be heard in the land, a shout of great destruction. Verse 23, Babylon, the mightiest hammer in all the earth, lies broken and shattered. Babylon is desolate among the nations, right? Listen, Babylon, for I have set a trap for you. You are caught, for you have fought against the Lord Yahweh Shemel Shai. The Lord Yahweh Shemel Shai has opened his armory and brought out weapons to vent his fury. The terror that falls upon the Babylonians will be the work of the sovereign Lord Yahweh Shemel Shai of heaven's armies, right? The nuclear destruction, the missiles, all right? Yes, come against her from distant lands. Break open her granaries, crush her walls and houses and into heaps of rubble. Destroy her completely and leave nothing. Destroy even her young bulls. It will be terrible for them too. Slaughter them all, for Babylon's day of reckoning has come. See? All right? All the foreshadowing of the defeat of this place, man. All right? So let's play this here. This is from Tucker Carlson Network. All right, you can read that title. Okay, let's get to it.
Anymore. I think that's becoming more and more obvious every day, but a lot of people do. So let's phrase it like this. What do you think it looks like if we do lose our place in the world? Do you think it's going to be that bad? I've been looking into some of this with what happened when Germany fell and what happened when the UK fell and what happened to the USSR when it fell. And some of them were really bad and some of them, like the UK stuff, it didn't really seem that bad. Like they still had law and order. Their currency was still worth money. I think they had a lot of debt. Property rights still existed. But the world figured it out. We don't need to answer these people anymore. There's a new sheriff in town.
There are only two things you need to survive long term, in my opinion. One is a coherent nation. Like, you have to have Germans. Like, everyone understands what a German is. You've got a shared history, language, cultural assumptions. Like, you have something in common with your countrymen. And you have to have your dignity and your self-respect. You can't be convinced to hate yourself just because you lost something. They can't break your spirit. They can't turn you into the prison bitch. And because if that happens, then there's no recovery at all. And the loss isn't measured in GDP. It's like much bigger than that. And so I would argue that the collapse of the British Empire, the collapse of the German state in 1945, the country was literally split in half. I mean, those were pretty soft landings on a surface level, but they were profound. And those nations were destroyed for all time. Whereas Russia, which went through in 91 when the Soviet Union dissolved, went through a period of, 10 years of lawlessness and the oligarchs and the mafia and people getting shot to death in Moscow and life expectancy plummeting and everything that we read about in the Western press. But actually, Russia remained a coherent nation with a shared vision of the future. It remained an actual place, like a real place. And now it's recovered, and now it's a great power again. Mm-hmm. It's the world's largest country, and it has a sense of itself as that, and it will continue. It will outlive us. It will outlive Germany and the UK, that's for sure. Whether my ancestors are from the UK and Germany, so like I'm kind of on their side in some deep sense, but just objectively, they're not going to exist because there's no such thing as a German anymore. Mm-hmm. The majority of births in the UK are non-English, so like, what does it even mean there's no country?
But before that, I mean, it was a soft landing.
Yeah, they had rationing in Britain for 10 years after the war. And
they had I didn't realize.
Oh, yeah. They had, I think for 10, some genius on the internet will correct me, but I think, for 10 years. Oh, it wrecked the British economy, the fall of empire. The empire really ended in 1918, but whatever. The point is, Americans still thought Britain was a real country and impressive. It was our parent. Being ambassador of the court of St. James was the highest honor in the U.S. State Department. Like, there was a lot of prestige that attached to Britain, not so much anymore, but the country itself was gone.
Hold on 1 second. Yeah, I wanted to grab this because they're terrified, man, that they're losing their position in the earth. Right? This is the fall of Esau Edom, Psalms 49 and 11. I was thinking about that. This is Psalms 49 and 11, and it reads, it says, their inward thought is, that their houses shall continue forever, right? So like he was saying, like, you know, like, is this really happening, you know? Like the fall of the Edomite hegemony is known, as being seen. Okay? They can't stop it. You know, there's no solution to this problem. Right? So their houses, their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, that they will always remain in power. And that's no longer the case. And their dwelling places to all generations, see? They call their lands after their own names, NOT. The grave is their eternal home, right? That's his destiny, where they will stay forever. They may name their estates after themselves, you see? So the point is that, you know, that grip, you know, they don't have it anymore. You know, the power is gone. You know, this is the end of his reign. You know, this is terrifying, you know?
And you know you're gone when you start importing people to replace your children. Like, that's just the most obvious. You know, what's your birth rate doing? Are people reproducing? Do they have enough confidence and enough self-respect to keep the project going with their genes? And no, they don't. So I think the bigger the empire, the farther out over its skis it gets, obviously, the more
Harder it falls.
Exactly. The uglier the crash. And I'm worried about our country because there is no coherent nation.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, they're being drowned out, man. Okay, they're really the minority. You know, and that's the transition. All right, Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of that. Follow it, man. Okay, so these Edomites all over the world. All right, they're losing their power, they're losing their grip. Okay, they're really the minority now, you know. So they're feeling it, you know.
Yeah.
Wait, you don't write anything down after conversations?
This?
Let's let this pass. Play a little bit more, and we'll go back to the scriptures here.
Well,
I spoke to an employer this morning, a big industrial employer who's a close friend of mine. You know, Republican, optimistic, very smart person, very decent Christian person. And he said to me, we have zero unemployment in the state. That he's a Midwestern state. He said zero unemployment. I don't care what they tell you. We can't find English-speaking workers. Nobody speaks English. And you have to work on our plant. You have to speak English for safety reasons. And we can't. Nobody speaks English. And this is in a major American Midwestern state. This is a major industrial company. Makes things. He said we can't. Nobody. In fact, he told me one of his competitors is going out of business because of labor shortages. And the problem is English. There just aren't enough English speakers in the United States to staff a factory.
holy shit.
So I think those of us who live in kind of like legacy communities where, you know, half your neighbors had an ancestor in the Civil War are not seeing what the country's becoming because we're cut off from it. Because we live in these little pockets that look like our childhood. But that's not a reflection of what the country is. That's not happening in Russia or China or Iran. So those are the measures, like all this stuff, like, oh, the nuclear program and whoever is running the country today and Yeltsin versus Putin. It's like, who cares? That's all window dress. I mean, those are meaningful, I guess. I mean, of course they're meaningful, but they're not ultimately the measures that matter. What matters is who lives in your country. Are there people whose ancestors live there, or are they brand new people who have no connection in all the country, are likely to treat the current occupants with contempt, and is it a source of income and people to be exploited? Anyway, so yeah, I'm concerned.
We all are.
But you're saying that
there you go. They're concerned, they're terrified, they're scared, you know. They're uncertain, anxious, nervous, you know, all the above, man. Okay? You can watch the rest of that, right? But the point, let's get to here too. All right? Because like the scriptures say, as we go back to Jeremiah, the 50th chapter, It says that that thy day is come. So this article here is from the WashingtonPost.com, and the headline reads, it says, U.S. General warns Pentagon he lacks sufficient forces to protect you know who. Okay? It says a shortage of Navy destroyers used to defend against Iranian ballistic missile attacks will force the head of U.S. European Command to prioritize the U.S. homeland instead, officials said. See? So this is a big deal right here. Okay? They're running out of weapons. Okay? Like I said, hey, that day has come. Let's go back real quick. Jeremiah 50. And we'll continue to read in the NLT. All right, this is Jeremiah 50 and 28 NLT here. It says, listen to the people who have escaped from Babylon as they tell in Jerusalem how the Lord, our power, has taken vengeance against those who destroyed his temple. Send out a call for archers to come to Babylon, surround the city so none can escape. Do to her as she had done to others, for she have defied the Lord, Yahweh Shai, the Holy One of Israel. It says, her young men will fall in the streets and die. Her soldiers will all be killed. Right? As we did lessons going into how they were, not giving you the real casualty count of people, of the soldiers that died. It says, verse 31 NLT, Jeremiah 50 and 31, see, I am your enemy, you arrogant people, says the Lord Yahweh Shai of heaven's armies. Your day of reckoning has arrived, the day when I will punish you. O land of arrogance, you will stumble and fall, and no one will raise you up. For I will light a fire in the cities of Babylon that will burn up everything around them. Whew, man. Okay. Here we go.
How are we doing on our arsenal? Because our ships are unprotected, our bases are unprotected if we run out of interceptor missiles. And now this is where we get to the disastrous news. If all the rest wasn't bad enough. So more than 50,000 U.S. service members are currently deployed to the Middle East and remain highly vigilant, focused, lethal, and ready, U.S. Central Command says. So guys, first of all, why is U.S. Central Command telling us, oh, by the way, we have 50,000 ground troops ready to go? Because they're considering ground troops. Remember, just the other day, Netanyahu goes to the White House, he comes out, and he gave a statement in Hebrew where he said, this was an excellent meeting with Donald Trump. The best I've ever had with a president of the United States. We are mutually aligned on all of our interests and goals. He did all but add, okay, when Netanyahu is that excited, that first thing I thought is, oh no, ground troops. And then right afterwards, U.S. Central Command saying, remember, we've got 50,000 ground troops. And part of the problem there, guys, is that we cannot protect them if we run out of defensive missiles. So, what's our situation there? Well, General Dan Kane, Raising Kane, was the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, warned Trump privately that, quote, resuming major combat operations against Iran was doable, but that it would dangerously deplete interceptors available to the military Central Command, which is responsible for operations in the Middle East. Now, I'm going to give you some stunning facts here. Patriot interceptors before the war was at 2,200. First of all, that's not that big a number. Do the Iranians have more than 2,000 drones? Of course they do. So do the Chinese. So do a lot of countries. They have tens of thousands. We only have 2,200 defensive missiles, and that was before the war. And that's not just for this war. That's period. So what are we down to now? Oh no, we're down to under 1,000. 827. Everything across the globe. For everything across the globe. We're almost out completely. If we keep going at this pace, and the war intensifies, oh, that's it. In a couple of months, we'll have almost nothing left. not just to protect our troops there, to protect our bases there, to protect our ships there, but then to protect us across the globe. We're using all of our defensive missiles to help Israel try to defeat Iran so thoroughly that they don't have a single missile or drone left?
Yeah, it's over, man.
This
Right?
has
Like the Lord said, surely he shall surely make their habitations desolate with them. Let me get that too. Because according to prophecy, all right, both America and, Tiny Top Land will be wiped out, all right? It's Jeremiah 49 and verse 20. Okay? It's already been set up, through the Most High that they're going to lose. Jeremiah 49 and 20, therefore hear the counsel of the Lord, Yehovah that he have taken against Edom, and his purposes that he had proposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. See? They're both going to get wiped out, man. It says the earth is moved at the noise of their fall. At the cry of the noise there was heard in the Red Sea. Okay? So we're very close. Okay? Let's play a little bit more.
Nothing to do with U.S. interests. Nothing to do with U.S. interests. And it is hurting us militarily incredibly. And by the way, now we've got some reports that they're letting some missiles through if they think it won't kill Americans, because that's how much we're worried about us running out of defensive missiles. Wow. And how about our THAAD missiles? So these are could also be used. Again, I thought we had way more than this, but it turns out before the war we only had 452, and right now we're down to 278 of those. Look, you guys know how I feel about this. If you're only listening to one side, you're not getting the truth. You're getting their version of it. That's a big reason we've been using ground news. They're small, independent.
Bear with me.
Or you're just sitting there. But can they really, reach our aircraft carriers? Aren't we so sophisticated? Don't we control the waters and the air? They hit one of our ships in Egypt. Iran is nowhere near Egypt. So can they get drones close to our ships and then hit them if they don't have any defensive missiles? Absolutely. We're going to have to get our aircraft carriers out of there. Otherwise, they're sitting ducks. But Israel's not done, and they demand more war, and they demand allegiance to their almighty goals and their greater Israel that they're trying to form inside of the Middle East. So now Hexit and other officials are going to startups in Silicon Valley and telling them, America's please get us more.
All right, so you can watch the rest of that as well. All right, and we'll end it here. Okay. This is from the nytimes.com. Scope of hacks on U.S. water supply widens as evidence points to Iran. So we've been telling you that everything disastrous is going to be tied to Iran. All right, to justify, this war as we see it. We're not going to read this article, but you get the point, man. Again, this is all tied into the foreshadowing of Babylon, America's defeat. All right, and the small hats included. There you have it. Shalom.